and change you'll ever get is from God. It's going to come from the Lord, or it's not going to come at all. It's going to come when you admit that you can't do it and that you've got to have His help.
I have noticed that time is really short. You guys do remember how to gauge the Lord's timing, right? You can gauge the Lord's timing by His people, how His people act and what they're going through. You know, I've always noticed that in the Old Testament, when the people they would rise and fall, but when they were at their worst, God's hand was always released to His people. You know, that same thing is about to happen now. We can be on one of two sides. We can be either with Him when His hand does touch His children, or we can be on the opposing side. And I'm telling you now, it'd be a bad thing to be on the opposing side, because for His children, it will in fact be a good thing. Lots of His children need a type of relief, a renewal, a type of renewal, a real renewal, not just talking about it, but an actual renewal. And that renewal is coming. But you're going to be on one of two sides. Those of you who have maintained your faith through these fiery trials that we've been under, well, of course, you'll gain the benefit of a full understanding. But those who have not, those who have given in to the devices of the enemy, those who have acted one way, but inwardly they were ravenous wolves, couldn't tame their tongues and so forth, well, they're not going to be so happy when that time comes. You know what makes the absolute best movie? The best movies that people ever made are the ones where the underdog wins. That's what makes a movie interesting. We're in that same fashion. You see, we are made in His image after His likeness. So some of the likes that we have, so does He. When the underdog wins, it's a beautiful thing, because you went through in that character's life in that movie. You went through the sufferings of that character. You saw that character maintain himself. You saw him recover. You saw him continue to strive for something good. And when the underdog wins, it makes a very good movie. And you know what? Some of you are going to go through that same process. You'll be that one that was in the movie, that even the character counted himself out, but it kept trying anyway. And then when God's hand sweeps across your life, you'll have that instant knowledge you were looking for. But some of us, on the other hand, some of us who decided not to endure, they decided to use God's word as a weapon against everybody else. They voided His love. They voided His instructions of remaining humble and meek. In fact, not being humble and not being meek is going against the Lord Jesus Christ, period. You're either humble and meek or you're not. And if you're humble and meek, you have characteristics of the Father. Now listen, I give a warning. If you have no humility and if you have no meekness, you need to get it quickly. Because if you have humility and weakness, all of your communications are holy. All of them. Not some of your... If your communications to anybody under any circumstances is not holy, if it does not contain humility, if there is no meekness involved in your communication, then the hand of Satan is upon your mouth. I'm just telling you that now. And it has to be purged. I'm giving you a warning. Because you know what? The Lord has given a lot of room to His children to repent. All this time, He's given us this time to repent and to consider our own ways. But you see, there comes a point in time when the warnings stop. As we've been reading through Revelation, you too saw the warnings stop. There were no warnings. All the grace, all the mercy was pulled. You know, when you actually saw the earth being hit in Revelation during the trumpets with plague after plague of comets and disease and so forth, that's what happens when God removes His grace and His mercy off of a situation. You see, but now mortal death is involved. It's coming. Now I'm giving you a warning. It's coming. Those of the Christian faith who do refuse to change, because here's the deal. It's not a lifelong process. It's a decision. Some of us have not made that decision. And because we continue to let the enemy use us, well then, those people are going to be moved out of the way. For some people, that'll be a blessing at first, but it's tragic nonetheless. It's very tragic. It's tragic because, was there something else we could have done for that person to show them another way? Was it? It's tragic because the Lord takes no joy in someone perishing like that. You see, if they perish If a person perishes right now and they have a foul mouth, that just simply means they made a choice to hold on to the world. And if that person perishes, they're not going to heaven. You know, in the Bible it was very clear who's not going to heaven. Paul said, don't be deceived. Adulterers, fornicators, people with hate, murderers, they're not going into the kingdom of God, period. They will not enter the kingdom. Even those who did things in his name, he's going to say, depart from me, you worker of iniquity. You know what's funny? Those people who healed in his name, did all these things in his name, for him to say, depart from me, you worker of iniquity, means they were living a double life. That's what it means. They were living a double life. You see, they were doing one thing for God in view of men, but in private, they were somebody else. Death is coming for a lot of people who have played simply to move them out of the way. You know, I had a dream. It was a strange, very strange dream. In the beginning of the dream, I had to contend with serpents and scorpions throughout the whole dream. They didn't bite me or anything. You see, a scorpion that resides inside of a person, it does have a sting. It's the words that they say. They say things. They do things that evoke the emotions of another individual. Those are scorpions. Serpents remain hidden for a time. Serpents have a different type of approach, but the scorpions who inhabit people, they were all over the place. I remember in the dream, I was trying to put a helmet on that shielded me. And you know what? It just hit me yesterday that helmet was the helmet of salvation. And that helmet itself, see, I had an entire uniform on. Think of it as body armor. It's very advanced looking. It was body armor. But the body armor was ineffective without the helmet. And I saw many people die from these scorpions because they did not have that. They had everything else, but they didn't have the helmet. You see, the helmet makes everything else work. Imagine a helmet being put over your head, and then it clicks into position, and the armor turns on. That's what it was like. You didn't need weapons because it was built into the suit itself. Everything was built into the suit. With the suit, you were impervious to any type of harm from anything. But at a certain point in the dream, after a few missions of killing these scorpions, I noticed that the guy that was next to me, and a few of them, in fact, couldn't find their helmets. They couldn't find them. And without the helmet, the armor doesn't work. And the scorpions were loose. Well, at the same time, when many people started losing their helmets and these scorpions began to destroy them, at that same time, spiders started coming out from everywhere. Strange-looking spiders, very lethal-looking. But the spiders came out and they were only attacking the scorpions. They weren't attacking any human, just the scorpions. Now, some people who had those scorpions residing in them, they died. The scorpions were being ripped apart. Some of the scorpions had such a tight bond with their hosts that if the scorpion died, so did the human. But the spiders began to lay eggs everywhere on earth so that they could devour all the scorpions. Now, they didn't touch humans. They didn't touch the serpents. They were after the scorpions. Those spiders were sent. They were released, it seemed like. They were released. After looking back on that dream, I realized that those spiders were somewhat divine in nature. You see, a scorpion is a scavenger, and it's very deadly. But the spiders can go through every crack and crevice to get those scorpions out. The spiders had a specific mission to devour, to tear into pieces the scorpions. Mankind were perishing from the scorpions because they did not have their helmet on. Everything else they had on but the helmet. See, you can't fake the helmet. You can fake everything else. You can fake your faith. You can fake the word, which is a sword. You can fake your footwear, which spreads the gospel. You can fake everything, but you cannot fake the helmet. Those people that were walking around and they couldn't find their helmets or they couldn't put it on when they absolutely needed it, they died, overtaken by the scorpions. You see, they died. Some people right now have everything but the helmet. But you see, the helmet can't be seen by the public, by us. Only the individual knows if they have that helmet or not. And you know what? When the scorpions multiply before the spiders come, those people who were faking it, they're going to die miserably. Now, when I tell you I heard screams in these dreams, the screams shook you all the way down to your bone. It was not a quick death. It was horrible suffering. all because they chose to fake their salvation. How terrible that was. You know what? In the dream, they were screaming so bad that I remember putting my hands on my helmet to make sure it was in place, that it wasn't going to come off or anything. That's how bad it was. Because you could hear the horror, the screams of horror in this dream. You could hear them. And since a kid, what's so strange about it is this. They didn't touch the serpents. And I shared with you guys that when I was a kid, when I was very young, I've always been able to see what resides within a person. It's either a scorpion or a snake. And they're always visible. They don't hide. They can see me too. They don't really hide. But the people who they reside in, not good. If a serpent resides in a person, then that person is not a seed of God, period. If a scorpion resides in a person, they've been taken over. Scorpions are scavengers. They've been taken over. A scorpion can inhabit any host, but the serpents are born that way. See, serpents are born within a person. It depends on what seed they are of. I do know in the Bible it says, no seed of God will remain in this world, which means they'll eventually come home. No seed of God will remain in this world. You see, the Lord said to love the world is have enmity with God. He said, love not the world or the things in it. So no seed of God will remain in the world, which means they're going to come out of the world and come home, will be saved. They won't walk in the world all their lives. But the serpents, they don't partake in the kingdom. They're different seeds here on earth. Are they human? Yeah, but they're a different type of their souls come from somewhere else. Their souls do not come from where your soul comes from. See, you're in this world, but not of this world. The serpent's seeds, those souls where the serpents live, well, they're not from where you come from. And they're all over the place. But for the most part, they remain invisible to us. They actually do. But the scorpions are different. There's another name for a person who has scorpions in them. I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but bipolarism. When a person is bipolar, they in fact have a scorpion dwelling within them. I know they have medical terms and everything for all this, but if you begin to investigate bipolarism, you'll notice that the data does not match the condition. Scorpions are ruthless. Scorpions are night hunters. Scorpions take advantage of any situation. Scorpions never want to be dominated over. They want to dominate. People have scorpion characteristics, but the bad part is this. Now the Lord is coming to remove the scorpions, and some of them are deeply rooted within individuals. You see, before something happens, the Lord will set his people free to do what they were called to do. And for some of them, the only way to set them free is to destroy any scorpions around them. That's a warning. I'm giving you a warning. If you suspect for a moment that one is, you know what, you can love other people and still have a scorpion inside you. You can be fooled to think it's not in you, and it's in you. This is why I always continuously say the same things. Be sure about your salvation. Have humility. Have meekness. Don't take 6 years to make a choice. Have the Lord in your heart 100%. Be 100% yourself, but do not play with your salvation. You're a citizen of the kingdom, and if you step out of the kingdom, you're going to be torn to pieces. It's the simplest thing. And you know what? In the Bible it says, be holy in all manner of communication, for it was written, be ye holy as I am holy. That's what Jesus said. If you're not holy in all manner of communication, that means your writing, that means your speech, even when you're upset. You better be holy in all manner of communication. You see, you speak no idle words. Those of you who have chosen to live these double lives, it's coming for you specifically. You see, when the Lord does something, there's no protection anybody can offer an individual except that individual repent. Now, when I say repent, that means turn away from and never do again. Not to keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's not repentance. That's having foreknowledge of a sin and doing it anyway. That's very dangerous. But this time is coming, and a great many people will be affected. You know, when it says many will fall away, some of them will not even make it to fall away. It would be better if a person did fall away. And wouldn't you know it, those who are lukewarm have the scorpions in them. Now, isn't that something? Those who are lukewarm, that can't make up their mind, they're saved one day, 5 minutes later, they're chewing somebody out on the phone saying choice words. Then they're back to salvation. Those same people are inhabited, and they don't realize it. Now, they can make a difference. They can, in fact, repent. They can repent. But if they don't, well, they become lukewarm. And the Lord said he will spew you out of his mouth. He would rather you be hot or cold. See, when you're lukewarm, you're inhabited by these things. And during the time of separation, he's not going to allow anything to be near his children like that. For the Christians, for those who do believe, you've been given power over scorpions and serpents. You've been given power over them. In other words, they talk a lot, but they can't touch. They threaten a lot, but they can't touch. You belong to the Father. And when you belong to the Father, you will in fact ignite a scorpion's rage. But scorpions talk a lot. I found that in most cases, those who have scorpions within them are not quite aware of what they're saying. They think it's justified what they're saying. But I want you guys to pray. You see, you have to pray. And this is why we have to pray for one another. We can't afford for our brothers and sisters to get weak. These scorpion things are everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere. Have you ever passed someone and they looked at you in a strange way, but their look was just, they just didn't look at you, but they looked within you. Have you ever noticed that? They looked within you. They looked at you like they knew you, because for some of you, you are known. But so long as you wear your helmet of salvation, you can't be touched. You see, it's not a fear thing. It's an identification thing. This is so you can identify certain things in your life. It's sad that a lot of people don't believe that a large amount of people are possessed. I'm telling you now, a large amount of people are possessed. They're just simply possessed. You see, we can't recognize possession in this day and age because morality has fallen. And we justify it through medications and mental problems. Now, I agree that some people do have mental issues, that their brain is not quite developed and so forth, but these same people can still be used by demonic entities. You know what? Multiple personalities is another word to say that they have more than one demonic entity in them. Not all demons are as forthcoming as you would think. See, when they get a host, they want to stay there. That's their house. They want to stay there. They don't want you to know that they're in there in the first place. I, for one, don't excuse certain things because I look into situations like that. I like to study the complexities of the brain, how it operates in the human body, what actually goes on when a person conveys multiple personalities and bipolarism and other things. But in just about every single case, their brain activity changes from nowhere, as though something else much stronger than they took control of it. So it does not match up when they take scans or anything else. But I give you a warning to be sure about your salvation. Many people in the body of Christ are going to begin to mourn, and they're not going to know why. They're going to feel it, and they won't know why. And right after they do that, a great many people will end up maimed. Make your choice now. Be sure about your choice. Be accounted with the Lord's children, and be spared from that doom. Be spared from it. That's a warning. It's at the door. That portion is at the door, and this is before anything else begins. It's at the door. Be sure about your salvation. I thought that dream was wonderful because, you know what? Your armor will not ever work without that helmet. The helmet turns everything on. The helmet can turn everything off. Be sure about your salvation, folks. Don't play with it. Don't take it lightly. It's real. Be a citizen of the kingdom all the way. Suppress, and get rid of strange imaginations. Stop leaning unto your own understanding. Don't accept the world's definition of spiritual things. That's another mistake. Don't accept the world's definition. You know what the world teaches you to do? To rationalize by their state of being. They want you to rationalize it, but not rationalize it by truth. They want you to rationalize it by their system. Well, it's not going to work for you. Haven't you noticed that everybody else around you always got away with things but you? You were the one that never quite fit in. That's because you belong to the kingdom. You cannot function like the outsiders. You can't do it. You'll never have a normal life by men's definitions, so stop looking for it. You're a citizen of the kingdom. Stop looking for what they call a normal life. You'll never be good at this world's things, their intellectual things, their corrupt way of managing finances and so forth, because here's one qualification for being successful in this world. You can't have a heart. You can't have unconditional love to others, because if you do, you won't be successful. In every single case, you're going to have to take somebody else's job. You know, a promotion simply means you take over somebody else's job. What happens to the guy that held that position in the first place? He gets fired. But you see, a lot of people don't look at it that way. They just blank that part out and say, "Oh, I got a promotion," and the other guy got fired. See, in order to be successful, there are some compromises that have to take place. But if we stay true to our morals, let the Lord open His doors for you. Don't open your own. We don't have enough wisdom in this kingdom to make it with our own understanding. I've seen people try it, fail time after time, only to come around to the beginning and do it again and again and again. I call that the yo-yo syndrome. They do the same things over and over again in life, expecting different results. You know, by the way, that's also a definition of insanity. You're insane if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results, certainly when you're dealing with the world. You're in this world. There are certain things you have to do in this world, but you're not of this world, and you're accountable for what you do. You're accountable, but there's a compromise you have to make to be successful in this world. You know what the Father deems as successful? That you put forth 100%. See, to Him, the outcome does not matter. But if you put forth your integrity and 100% of yourself in something, to the Lord, that is successful. But if you don't put 100% into things and do it by His prescribed way of living, you're unsuccessful to Him too. I would rather be successful to the Father and unsuccessful in the world than to be unsuccessful with the Father, period. And it takes putting forth 100% of your abilities, your mindset, and everything else. Haven't you noticed that for you, not for everybody else, just for you, everything that you're capable of is required? Have you noticed that? Those of you who are electronically inclined, you're the ones that get things that break down all the time, and you have to go and fix them. That's because the Lord's word is true. Much known, much required. So if you know it, something is going to happen to make you utilize the skills that you were born with. Simple as that. If you're good at talking to people, you're going to find yourself in a position having to talk to people. You're put in positions to exercise those things that are put in you. For one, Satan has to get permission to do anything to you based upon how you were engineered. In other words, you can take 5 people. Satan will ask permission 5 times to be a part of that fiery trial you're going to go through, but he must handle it differently for each person. He can't even overstep the bounds of your limitations, your true limitations, which says this: if the Lord's going to send you a fiery trial, but it does not exceed your limitations, then you're whining in vain. Your crying and your whining is in vain. Because the Lord said He'll never place anything on you beyond that which you can bear. So everything you're going through in life, you're able to handle. He's not going to send you through anything that will take you. That means for some of us, we're just simply giving up. If we're in the middle of a trial and we really feel we can't handle it, that's not truth. That is not the truth. You know, instead of saying, "God, I can't handle this," you know what we need to tell Him? "Lord, show me what's within me, what you built me with to overcome this." How about asking Him for a solution? See, you're made to overcome, not wheeze out. Satan causes situations and sneaks out. That's not our way. We are, in fact, overcomers. We overcome situations. We do not sneak out of situations. So the next time you're within a trial, then ask your Father in heaven to teach you how to overcome it. And He will allow you to begin to recognize those things. For some people, they sit dormant or we're using them the wrong way. Your capabilities and your abilities to overcome something. Not to whine because you're whining in vain. Your tears are in vain. That will be like watching a baby whose bottle is 2 feet in front of him, and the baby can crawl all over the house, but he's whining for the bottle. He's whining and crying and everything else. Now, would you hand the baby that bottle or just sit there and look at the baby? Because the baby wants you to hand the baby the bottle, but the bottle's 2 feet away and the baby knows how to crawl. What would you do in that situation? To the child, maybe they just gave up. And for them at that point, all they know is, "Oh, my life is miserable. I don't have a bottle. It's 2 feet in front of me and I can't reach it." You know how many times we do that in our trials and tribulations? We whine too. We whine in those situations. The answer's 2 feet in front of us, but we want God to do it. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. Oh, Lord, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to learn. That's what you're saying. Oh, I don't want your wisdom in this. I just want to get out of it and start over. And so I'll do it again on a better day, not today. Every single thing you've been through in life, you've been engineered, designed to handle it. Now, it's important to remember your body is your vessel here on earth. It's not permanent. It's not something to be worshipped, something to be prized, or anything else. That's not what it is. It's your vessel to get around on earth. That's what that is. A vessel specifically designed for your soul to exercise those things put in you. It grew with you to accommodate your abilities. By the way, I find that utterly amazing, because sometimes we get in trials and we do begin to whine. The Lord is saying, calm down. I know what I'm doing. We get into trials and throw tantrums, don't we? We throw tantrums. Then we end up throwing tantrums with everybody around us simply because our life is not going right. And then we wonder why we live in this utter dark place in our lives. That's why. Stop complaining. Begin rejoicing to the Father that, first of all, He saw fit to teach you something. How about that one? You think He just sends trials to see how you're going to react? No. He sends it so you can recognize something. So ask Him what needs to be recognized. Learn in your trial. Don't try and squirm your way out of that. It's a good thing. But I give you a warning. I'm trying to mention those things to you that are going to deeply affect you in the months to come. Be true now so that when that day comes, you're not caught off guard. Because if you are caught off guard, you're lost. You're going to be lost. You see, we've had plenty of time to get things right. We've had plenty of time to forgive everybody in our lives. We've had plenty of time to get things right. What are we doing with our time? And some people will be witnessed by everybody else. That, you know what's even worse than that is that those who do have their helmets on are the ones that are normally abused verbally by other people. And they're going to be the ones that don't have their helmets on are going to have to look at and answer to. You see, the Lord promised that those who did abuse you will be the ones right before they're condemned will have to look you in the face. You'll see them again. But this time, you'll be the one sitting on the good side, having made and completed your mission, and the others will be the ones that will be tossed into the lake of fire, sitting there with their knees quivering, because they know it's for eternity. I don't think people quite comprehend that. Can you imagine your worst nightmare, right? Imagine you're caught in a dream, and you're so, has anybody ever had a dream, you're so glad you woke up, you're like, ooh, I'm glad that dream was not real. Thank you, Lord. Well, just imagine a perpetual dream that never stops. It only gets worse and worse and worse, and there's no escape. No escape whatsoever. That's what people are going to be caught in, but it will be that and a billion times worse. First of all, you'll be separated from all hope. There'll be no hope. You'll know for a fact there's no way out. There'll be no love at all. None. No love. No compassion. Only darkness, negativity. No way out. You'll feel all the negativity that you try and desperately to fight now. You try to fight it now. Those who practice these negative things, well, you're going to live in all negativity. You'll be separated from all light. Totally separated. Can you imagine that? Yet some people toy and walk through life as though it's not going to happen. Woe to them is what I say. It's the only thing I can say is woe to them. Because the time of a final choice is fast approaching. One day, there'll be no more salvation. You know, the Lord said, seek me now while I may be found. One day there's going to be no more salvation. You're going to sin one time too many one day and find out there's no salvation. Then the sin will only compound from there. Can you imagine that? Being separated from salvation, not having the ability to say, Lord, forgive me. Because if you can't say, Lord, forgive me, you're stuck with your sin. And nobody with sin is going into the kingdom, and that's why we need Jesus Christ. You can't go to the kingdom with sin in your life. That's why we have an advocate whose name is Jesus Christ. But one day, it's going to be one day too many for a lot of people. They won't be able to say, Lord, forgive me. They're going to be stuck with what they're doing. Can you just imagine that? If you slipped up with a certain word or did something, no forgiveness. That's why in Revelation it said, time will be no more. In other words, God said, I won't delay anything any longer. It's over. And those people who did what they did, they're going to be stuck. They'll know in an instant that they're doomed. They'll be the walking dead. From that moment forward, they'll look forward to no life. no hope, all their dreams, ambitions crushed, no eternity like they wanted. They won't even be remembered. That time is going to take people unaware. You know, there are hints in the Bible about that time coming sooner than what people think. When that time happens, the beast will have full reign on the earth. But long before that happens, people are making their choice now. You see, concerning the mark of the beast, I'll tell you right now, people are already wearing that mark on their sleeve. It's almost like you can talk to people and understand who's going to worship the beast and who's not. You see, they've already made a choice, and they chose the way of the beast already. So I know when the beast comes, they won't overcome him, because they're giving in to the mark right now. The mark is not even here yet, but the system of the mark is in place, and they serve that system, period. They're loyal to that system, period. We don't need the mark, and if you use your mind and discernment, you can already see who's going to accept it, because they're living it out right now. I hear plenty of people say, well, I'm not taking the mark when it comes out. Yet those same people will compromise in their faith for the sake of nothingness. You can't compromise your faith for peace. That is exactly how the Antichrist is going to work. For the sake of a false peace, he's going to make many compromise. He'll come in peaceably across the fattest places. He'll come up with the small people. He'll win people over with flatteries. He'll scatter among them the prey. Truth be told, people have the spiritual mark already. It's almost like they're already accounted for. If you compromise a little bit, you're going to take the mark. If you get irritated, aggravated from following God, you're going to take the mark. I'm just telling you now. You're going to take the mark. But see, we have a choice right now to clean our lives up. And I'm telling you, we need to clean our houses up and clean them quick, because an inspection is coming. And if you fail that inspection, well, we won't be seeing you anymore, because the true divide of the body of Christ is starting to take place. Now, we know long before the sixth seal opens, something's going to happen to a great many people. They're not going to be here. You're going to be left back here. And you know what? I do not subscribe to the pre-trib. I don't, because that's a lie. It says that great number of people came out of great tribulation. Never once said they came out before, but they came out of great tribulation. We are going to experience part of it, but when it begins, a great many people are going to be missing. Those who trust in their finances will in fact take the mark. I'm just telling you now. You see, some people are doing everything they can to save their money. You know, there is another scripture that says in the kingdom of heaven is those you didn't think that were going to be there will be there, and those you thought would make it won't. I was reading in Luke this morning, and the Lord was very caring, but very encouraging and very clear about what he was saying. You know what? Again, we have to ask ourselves, what is all this about? You know, sometimes we have to define our own walk. What are we doing? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Are we really following Christ, or does he just pacify our lives? Now, I know that's a tough one, but it's something we should really ask. If we love him, we'll live by his prescribed way. He knows. He came in the flesh, so he knows it's not easy. But he constantly encouraged us, didn't he? He told us what trials and tribulations were for. He told us how to have confidence in the Father. He asked us to believe. You know, if we apply those things, our life changes. I mean, it really changes. Some of the things that we used to be concerned about, we won't be concerned about. Here's why. If you trust God 100%, then you know he has your soul in his hands. When you trust him 100%. So you're not really bothered about what's going on all around you. You're not bothered about that. But you are looking to see where you can intercede based on your gifts. In other words, your time is not spent inwardly. It's not spent emotionally. It is spent pouring out who you are into other people's lives. Very effectively, tactfully. You see, there's a way you do that. If you do it tactfully, you don't offend the other person. If you trust the Lord 100%, then you know he's going to supply all of your needs according to his riches and glory, that he does everything perfectly, and that anything he does, anything that happens on earth, is first approved by him. Now, if the Father's doing things, I'll give you an example. On the battlefield, when I first stepped into the battlefield, to see people die the way they did was heart-wrenching, period. It was heart-wrenching. But see, that was part of my development. What I began to realize was, you know what, the Lord allows or disallows this to happen this way. Then you begin to investigate the people who fell in combat and what their lives really were like. Then you begin to understand that the Lord's word is absolutely true. You see, some soldiers would die instantly. Some wouldn't die at all. Others, it was misery, but it was for a reason. We're all different vessels prepared for different things. I've suffered in the body. Big time. I mean big time, to the point where other people were just, they were just broken because I suffered. But yet here I am. All that suffering was for a reason. Sometimes we look short-term into things and say, why me? When we pour our attention into ourselves, it's always pitiful. I'm going to just tell you, it's always pitiful if we pour it back in on ourselves. But you see, the Lord said, don't do that. The Lord said, I have my eyes and my focus on you. You put your eyes and your focus on your brothers and sisters. That's what he said. I learned that if I turn my attention inwardly upon myself, there's nothing good that can come out of that, ever. You see, when I got angry and everything else, back in the past, it was me centering back in on me. And why do people say this to me? Me kept popping up. When you get sad, I mean really, really sad, there again, it comes back to me. Why are they treating me this way? See how many me's are in that? But the Lord said, ignore that. By my word, don't worry about that. I'm going to give you a list of things that people are going to do to you. Read them and believe them, because they're going to do it. After you have read them and believed them, then I want to show you what you are supposed to do for your brothers and sisters out there. So guess what? For a very long time, the walk that I've walked is the focus of my brothers and sisters. And I found out that I don't care what people say about me. I know they're going to say things about me. That was promised in the Word. That's a promise in the Word. That's a promise. But if I can stop the attention from going on me and focus into somebody else, there you go. Now, the hardest thing you can ever do is intercede in somebody's life where children are involved. That's one of the hardest things you can ever do. See, with adults, it's easy. You'll say, well, you're accountable for your own stuff, and you can go and pour into somebody else's life. But where children are concerned, naturally you don't want the children to suffer anything. But I've found something else out too. Children are different. Children are natural survivors. I found that if we don't compromise in the love that we have within us, if we expect attacks upon our lives, our walk is a whole lot easier. Because we don't walk around questioning why someone did this and why someone did that and why someone did this or that. How many of us spend a lot of time, honestly, contemplating those things? Why did someone do me like this or that? How many people? Those of you who said I used to, you've grown past that point. But guess we have a responsibility to open the eyes of our brothers and sisters to let them get to that point. Personally, I think it shows the character of an individual. When they really can't believe what somebody else did, it does. It shows a good character with that individual. And they have to be grown. They have to grow up and learn these things. Now, that's a compassionate grow up. In other words, they have to learn that small portion of what we've learned, because here's the deal. Where I am advanced in certain things, just like the understanding with the children, where I am advanced, I may lack in other areas that you guys make up in. So it's not one of us higher than the other. It's just that we have been exposed to certain elements that we have been advanced in. Those out of the rest of the body, so the entire body can be complete. Does that make sense to you all? You see, if I know the way to endure something, I'm going to share. Not my way either, because I learned that if I do something my way, it fails. If I do it by the way Jesus told us to do it, it succeeds. You know, that's the biggest obstacle any one of us have to overcome, is doing things our way. That gets us in trouble. That's what gets us in trouble. We need to do things the Lord's way. And here's why: because things are so close and so detrimental that if we're doing it our ways, it can cost us our lives. We have to do it His way. You see, the Lord's way holds the promise. Our way holds nothing but condemnation and keeps sliding down the ladder. Our way is messed up. It's based off emotion and everything else. The Lord's way is perfected. Therefore, I'm not going to do it my way. I'm going to do it His way. I'm going to do it the Lord's way. because my way stinks. I'm not going to lean unto my own understanding, because that's idiotic. I would be a fool to do that, because my way does not work. And a lot of us have to overcome that obstacle of doing it our way. All you have to do is, through the course of your day, catch yourself and say, oops, I'm doing it again, and do it the Lord's way. But I tell you this, in order to do it the Lord's way, you too have to become a student of the Gospels, because everything Jesus told us to do are contained within the Gospels of Jesus Christ. And apparently, I did something a few days ago among some friends that I know, right? I went to look at their Bibles to see what pages were worn and what was not. It's funny, the Old Testament was wore out, but the Gospel pages were neat and clean. And I looked at one of my buddies and I said, wait a minute, this is backwards. What's wrong with this book? He said, well, what? I said, look at the Old Testament books. He said, I know, I got to get another Bible. Look how it just wore him out going through the Old Testament. He was proud of it too, right? But I said, the Gospels are untouched. I said, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John look untouched. The pages are crisp. I said, why? I said, give me an honest answer. You know what he told me? He said, well, I can understand the Old Testament is straightforward. I can understand it better. I said, yeah, but it's the Old Covenant. All the instructions are in the Gospels of Jesus Christ. I told him it was hard to understand sometimes because it speaks to your spirit, directly to your spirit. It's harsh to read sometimes because we do the opposite of what Jesus is saying. But all the instructions are there. The Old Testament is easy. It was straightforward. Go kill this army, they're dead, they died. Go take this land, they did, and they died. Go do this, they did, and they died. The New Testament is different. The New Testament is all about functioning in the Spirit, operating in love, throwing all other emotions, flushing those down the toilet, and operating in love. See, that's hard to do for people. You know why? Because they have practiced conveying their emotions in other ways, and they think it's cute. They don't realize it's killing them. Emotions are part of the flesh, and I'm telling you now, they can consume you. But love, again, is an energy that pulls emotions out of you. It sparks good emotions in you. The rest of them, what are they good for? Be honest with yourself. What are the rest of the emotions good for? Because they all encompass yourself. And if the Lord is looking after us, we don't need to look after ourselves. We have responsibilities, yes. But what is that? I could do a contrast to compare the New Testament and the Old Testament. That'll just make the average person angry. See, under the Old Covenant, the Lord was demonstrating who He was, the history, and the foreshadowing of Jesus Christ coming. Those in the Old Testament couldn't even keep the law. Cities were lost. They couldn't follow the instructions. You know, the Old Testament can show a great fallacy of the flesh and just how stubborn the flesh can be. Because every single instruction He gave to anybody in the Old Testament, they couldn't keep it. Abraham didn't keep it. Moses didn't keep it. That's why he couldn't enter the promised land. David didn't keep it. Solomon went crazy when he got older. Daniel kept it. It almost slipped up, and then they quit writing about it. Isaiah almost slipped up. Melchizedek in the Old Testament, he's in a class all of his own. Elijah's in a class all of his own. Noah messed up. As soon as the ark landed, he got drunk. You see, they couldn't keep anything. They couldn't keep anything. They couldn't do anything right. But it does show you the character of our God. It foreshadows what He's about to do, all wrapped up in one. It's in the entire Old Testament that conveys the Lord's likes and dislikes to us. The great many people ignore it. And in effect, you can see God through the Old Testament. You can see God through the Old Testament. You can see what He likes and what He absolutely does not like. You can see the penalties of those things He doesn't like. You can also appreciate Jesus Christ more when you know what God would have done to you back in those days. But you can also see His love upon mankind and how important Jesus really is. Because the world we're facing is unlike any before it. There'll be none after it like into it. It's a tumultuous time because it's an assault on everything, even reality. What you call reality will soon be challenged. You'll find it hard to differentiate between reality and dreams pretty soon. It's going to be very difficult to you. Then after a tumultuous time when the kingdoms are put back together, people are going to want to remake this earth, their cities again. But this time they can only do it with the mark of the beast. Everything before would have collapsed and been burned up. Except those very same people who are running it now will go into the underground caves and bunkers and cities, only to emerge to create it again without Christians. That's what's going to happen. It's very simple. All these people saying, "Oh, I hope they get what they deserve." Well, you can forget that. They're going to get their utopia. It's already prophesied. Then Satan comes down, and everything is set up to hand over his power to the beast. And then out of the beast will come the man of perdition. Everything is being staged right now. The only missing components is a great war and a lot of celestial activity and the falling away, which is in progress right now. A great many people are falling away, being offended by the Word of God. You know why? It's too harsh. No fornicators. Everybody now who gets married has sexual relations before they're married. Everybody. No fornication. No fornicator will enter the kingdom of God, period. You know what? Paul said that. None of them will. No murderer will. You know, if you're angry at your brother, you're considered a murderer in God's eyes. So if you're angry at someone, you're a murderer, and you're not going to the kingdom. Things like that are becoming too harsh. Not many are getting married now. Then when you do, you don't know what you're marrying. I mean, they're going to have to, pretty soon, they're going to have to say, well, what were you born as? Because people are swapping bodies into other bodies or parts. They're getting parts chopped off and other parts added and vice versa. And it's real weird, but that's the way it is. They'll be given over to a reprobate mind. They're going to want nothing to do with you. So morality is really hitting rock bottom right now. It's not going to come. It's happening right now. And here we as Christians who are supposed to be living a life as Christians can't even be holy in our communications. See, we have work to do because the purging is coming. And when the purging comes, everything that is not Him will be burned up. For some people, they are not Him, so they'll be burned up. They'll be consumed. And again, I give you a warning, because some people have been toying with their salvation, and that game is just about over. Have you guys ever noticed when tornadoes come, they pick and choose what houses are going to run over and this, that, and the other? I got this feeling, and this is out there, but I have a feeling that's what's going to happen with meteorites. They're going to pick and choose who they take out, because they're coming, and a great many fires are going to come too. Fires are going to begin all over the place. But when we do have this small meteor shower, it's going to take out some folks. It's going to ruin people's lives. Their homes are going to be gone and everything else. Those people toying with their salvation, they're going to find out the hard way just how wrong they were. But the stench of many nations is ascending up. The stench of many nations. All these people who are leading people astray outside of the doctrine that's in the Bible. You see, the fact is this. How in the world can we move to another doctrine when we can't even obey the doctrine that's given to us? How can we do? How's that work? See, a lot of people don't accept the things in the Bible, so they move on to something else. But we can't even follow what Jesus told us to do. The Son of God now told us to do some things, and we won't do them. You know what that's called? That's called disobedience. We do things that we're going to pay for, and we don't even know it, like this one in Luke 12:3. Therefore, whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear in closets shall be proclaimed upon the housetops. They're going to set Christian to Christian. Everything you do is digital. Everything you said against someone will be played back to that person. They're going to set Christian against Christian. It'll be a tumultuous time. And yes, they have the capability to do that, and they are going to do that. They will absolutely do it. Not to mention, something else is going to happen too. You see, a lot of people don't understand the human mind. That when you go to sleep, your subconscious, people call it, has all truth within it. Now, imagine if your subconscious were to be activated while you were conscious. That means you could look at a person and know everything about them. There'll be no more secrets anymore. That too is a phenomenon that is beginning to happen. That's a brand new phenomenon that's beginning to happen. People are walking around with their subconscious wide awake. They can look at a person and tell you everything about them, everything. That's interesting. But you see, to be able to see the truth of all things. See, truth is truth. Truth can be very ugly. Truth can be extremely ugly. But you see, we by not following what Jesus Christ wrote in the New Testament, we're disobedient children. We all know the penalty for being disobedient children. Just think about that. We know what He said in the Gospels and we don't do it. We're disobedient. We're just simply disobedient. There's no way around it. We're disobedient children. To do what the Lord said in the New Testament, and to do it out of love, is to be an obedient child. But see, being obedient in this dispensation of grace carries an abundance of joy. Everybody wants that joy. They want that joy back in their life. But they won't do anything Jesus said to get it. They won't do the simple things needed to obtain it. And yes, I said simple things. It's not complicated. I'll give you a good gauge. How many of us still complain in the course of a week? Let's be honest. How many still complain? And then after you say, well, I'm one of those ones who complain. Why do you complain? You know what? When the Hebrews were taken out of Egypt, they also complained, but they complained because they didn't believe God was going to do what he said he would do. They didn't believe it. That's why they complained. Well, a lot of us today complain because we're in a habit of complaining, number one. But number two, we also complain because we don't believe God is going to solve our problems. Well, the Lord never, listen, let's get this straight. He never said he was going to solve your problems. That's not what he said. He said he was going to deliver you. You see, some of the problems we have is like this. We take a knife, we slit our wrist and say, oh, Lord, fix it. I'm going to bleed to death. That's what we're doing. Disobedience causes us to get in the problems that we're in, and because his word is released that says we have to reap what we sow, well, no good complaining. But if you ask the Lord, Lord, be merciful, oh, then you struck a chord with him, because you just asked something. He told you to ask, to be merciful, and he's just to do that, whether you cause it or not. But we will reap what we sow. And when you do reap what you sow, if you've sown something really heinous and bad, it comes at the wrong time, then your life falls apart. So you know what? Like I said the other day, stop sowing death into your future. Don't murmur and complain. In the book of Hebrew, it says murmurers and complainers tempt God. And when you tempt God, we all know how bad that is. It is written, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. That angers him when we murmur and complain. See, when we murmur and complain, we're effectively saying, God has no power to do this or to do that. Now, how terrible is that? How terrible would it be to tell your Father that you love so very much that he's worthless? Because when you complain, that's what you're communicating. See, we only complain when something is not fixed based on our timing. That's when we start to complain. That's effectively saying that God has no power to do anything for us at that moment. It's pretty bad, isn't it? Folks, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit. Because you know what? There's a warning in my spirit. Normally when there's a warning in my spirit, it begins to happen instantly. Please listen to what I said and take it as a warning, because it will unfold.